Etch-A-Sketch, our final program this year. Etch-A-Sketch is something I used to do in the beginning because the old Visual Basic didn't conform with the standards of the graphics that the new Visual Basic does. And so as a result, when you drew something, it remained on the screen. The old way of doing things, everything remained. Nothing was erased between it. But now, any refresh or anything like that erases it. So you get a movement rather than a lasting image. And in order to do this, we need to do a few things to keep that image on there, because it's the what we've drawn must stay type situation that's going to allow us to do the Etch-A-Sketch. So I postponed it to now because you have to use a special type of variable, and this is getting into our next and part of the data structures. So let's go see what we have to do to make this Etch-A-Sketch program. It's fairly easy. First of all, it's just almost like the space program. You're going to have something that moves around, a dot. Solid dots generally work better than open ones, but I think you probably should do both just to see. The Etch-A-Sketch is a dot that moves around but doesn't erase its image each time. So the image stays on the screen of where it was and where it goes to, and now you get a line. Basically, a bunch of dots make a line. What you're going to do is you're going to take make a new project called Etch-A-Sketch, and you're going to copy the code that we need. Now, we don't need anything about the blasting, and we don't need anything about the exploding, and we don't need anything about the points. All we need is the variables needed to move the ships in the Space Wars program. We need a form load code that sets the ship on the screen, sets them up. We don't need anything with scoring or anything like that. We need the code in the key down areas that allow us to move the ship, okay, and not the firing, just the moving. And we need the code that keep the ship on the screen. In other words, the code, the if statements that doesn't let it go up off the top of the screen, those types of things. We also need the code in the paint methods, and that's where we're going to do our most work and add most stuff to this program. So everything's the same as the ships in the movement portion. In other words, the original spaceships program where you were moving, but we're going to do something special in the paint. Yeah, only copy the codes involved in that. Don't copy the code for firing and blasting. And then after you've done that, check to make sure your ships move around the screen. And once you're there, then you're ready to go on with this second part. And this second part deals, well, first of all, let's take a little look at variables. A variable is just a name stored space. I mean, we got something over there we call iCount. It's a variable. It's a place we put things, like a little box where we can store numbers or characters. The thing about a variable is only one thing at a time can be stored there. If you push one number into it, that's good. It stays there. Then if you put another number into it, the first number goes away. The old one was erased. So only one thing at a time. We have had a different variable name for each variable we used, a different little storage box. But now it's come apparent that we want the computer to kind of put things in different boxes depending on when they were created. And for that, we need the computer to have a little control over the names. We can't just put up a whole bunch of if statements and, well, we could, but I mean, it wouldn't make much sense. And so what we've done is there's another type of variable called an array. And the array is basically just a storage. There, I put a 3 in the box over there. Here it goes. The array. The array is just basically a whole group of variables named a single name. So iCount, over here on the right now, has a whole bunch of little boxes there. We can store a number of things. And these are referenced by number. In other words, iCount 0 is the first one, iCount 1 is the second one, so on and so forth, up to iCount 6. It's what we call zero-based. It starts at 0, goes as high as whatever you requested. And to request the thing to be set up that way, you use a dim statement, as is shown right down in here. You see? That dim statement allows us to dimension iCount as 7 little boxes. And you see the 7 boxes there. There are 7 boxes if you count them. They start numbering at 0 and they end up at 6. So that's something important you have to remember, is that it is 1 less than the number you requested is the highest number, of course. Okay, so that takes care of what they are, basically. And you can store variables in them, just like before. So if I did iCount And you use parentheses, by the way, just as I've shown you there in the dim statement. So if you did I count 0 and I want to put a number in it, that's where it'd go. If I did I count 1 and I put another number in it, that's where it'd go. So on and so forth. I count 2. Now what's nice is inside that parentheses, we can actually use a variable, like the letter I, which we do in the program, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And that allows us to store things. Now, why do we need arrays? Well, because we have to have the computer keep track of every single point we create when moving that ship around. And that means that we have to store them someplace because they can't be kept on the screen. The screen gets erased every time. So we're going to set up several arrays. We'll set up one for the x coordinate, one for the y coordinate, and one for the color of the ship. And every time we make a move, we'll record it so that we know where that ship has been. And then in the paint routine, I'll show you how we get it to repaint all those points before going on and repainting the next point. All right, let's go down now and look at our screen and our code. So basically, here we are again. We have a a pick screen. I think we called it pick space, and this is where you're going to have to watch out. I call it pick screen. And so my code has pick screen in it, but if you copy and paste, yours will have pick space. So you need to decide how you're going to name this. You can keep it the same name if you want to, but putting it as a different name, I'm talking about this area right here, this pick screen that I made a kind of silver gray. And you can choose any color for the background you want, white or whatever. But making it a pick screen kind of goes along with what the program is, and it's not that hard to change the name of that stuff in the code. You do a search and replace that you can do in Visual Basic. Keeps it up to date. I put a menu script, a menu up here, and the menu here has the file open and close, which aren't functional, and we're not going to make them functional. It's going to take a little more work. To save a graphic is a job. Visual Basic has made it simpler, and to be honest with you, I haven't sat down and tried to figure out exactly what they're doing with that. But at any rate, we'll worry about that sometime later if you stick with me next year. Tools. I put the color in here. Now, I used menus because I was having some trouble with the buttons and key movement. Sometimes if I wanted to use arrow keys or something, it would select the buttons down here, so I didn't use the buttons. So here's the menu down here, you see, and then I also had to pull up a color dialog box. So DLG color is what I call it. And that's going to enable us to change the color going through here. All right, so with that in mind, it's time to take a look at a little code here. What have I done differently here? Well, you can see this is all the stuff up above that we used for the regular movement stuff. And this stuff down below here, this count, I count, and integers, they're used for various things. The integer thing, I think, is what I use in here. I think I added an integer like that, but I could have used something else, I suppose. The count and I count are used to keep track of how many variables we have. I'm going to concentrate on one of these, but you'll need a second one for the filled one or the open one. You'll notice here's the big block of variables I've added, though. And these are the arrays. Here is the array, the X array for the points, the Y array for the points, and I set aside 10,000 of them. I don't know how many I'm going to need, but I set aside enough. You can't add to an array, but you can always not use the whole thing. And I set a color up for that one. And then here's the second dot right down here. It's up to you if you should set that one up too. And again, 10,000 like that. So I've got the two dots on the screen moving. All right, so with that in mind, setting those items up, let's go look at what we did in the key area. Okay, now in the key area, remember this is where we actually do the movement. So all I did was I added these statements right here. Every time we do a move, you can see I add one to the count. I then set the X variable into the X of that count. So we start out the count probably at 0 from form load. We add 1 to it, making it 1. I just skipped 0 basically is what I've done. It's really technically for the first one that you draw. you know, the one that comes in the center of the screen. Then I put my Y in the Y variable thing, and then I put the color in the color one, because we've got to restore the color of each one. So every little movement draws a new figure, and we've got to save that figure. And the way we save it is we just save its location and redraw it. It's that simple. And we do this for each and every one. So basically you can write this code down once and then paste it down through these. You've got 8 directions. There you got your 8 codes, right? And then the same for the other one, for the filled one. Here's that. You've got 8 directions. Actually, it starts right here. You've got your 8 directions, 8 fill ones. Now, I only show 4 directions here. That's all I need to show because I just wanted to show you the one. But this is the same code, these 4 lines here that I add, same code to each direction because they're picking up the X and Y as it's figured out here. And you must save both X and Y even though you only change X, because each point is drawn separately, so it has to remember its X and its Y and its color to be redrawn exactly the way it was. Let's take a look down here what we did in Paint. Let's see, this is the form load, and you can see here, just to point it out, there is where I set the counts to 0 to start the whole thing off. Okay, going down further now, here's the Paint routine now. Here's what I do in Paint. Paint's the same as the normal movement one, except for each one I've added a loop, a for loop. I'm going to do as many drawings as I have a count for. See this? Look. There's my count right there. There's my count for the filled one right there. See? So I'm going to loop through these statements as many times. And I just use the I variable here. And look, there's the I variable there. The me dot just says it's for this form. And for some reason it wanted me to put that on there to clarify that it's a local variable really. And there's the I, you see? Look, and for the color also. So the first thing I had to do is put the color into the brush. Okay, so I use the statement mybrush.color equals the color. That puts the color into the brush. And it puts the color of the particular dot we're looking at. When I is 1, it's going to put the first color, the first one that we drew, the first movement we made. And then I do the fill ellipse with that brush and with the X and Y coordinate and the same width I had. Now if we had it so we changed widths as we drew, I'd have to have arrays for these also and store each of them as they went. Now you realize the first one is drawn here. I just left it as it was. I didn't take it out. I could have stored it in the 0th location and started this at 0 then, right here. But I chose to just go ahead and draw it and then start this one at 1 and continue looping through until each and every one of them is drawn. So now what this is going to do is every time we do a refresh, it's going to redraw all those circles we've already drawn, as well as the new one right here. Same with the open circle. Here it is. And you'll notice when we do that on the screen, it's kind of a little bit unique. You'll see how different it is. And you can play with this instead of just drawing ellipses, which are basically the circles. An ellipse, when it's equal on both height and width, is a circle. An ellipse can be an ellipse. You can stretch it out. You could try that if you wanted to on some programs. There's also a rectangle and a rectangle fill in there. And there are lines that you could use if you want to use a line and do sideways and that, sort of a calligraphy type thing. Makes it a little tougher to do. This is the easiest way to do it. So my suggestion is do that in this manner. Now the only other things that I did in here, which probably you may have in your ship and you may not, some people did this, is I added the menu stuff here. Here's the menu for a color of one ship, and here's the menu item for the color of the other ship. And all I did is call the color dialog box and then set the color to that. So the next time it's drawn, and I didn't even refresh at that point. I just figured the next time it's drawn, you'll get a new color. So as it moves on, you'll see it go in a different color. All right, well, let's go see how this thing works. And we'll, oops, excuse me. We'll just wait until it comes up, I hope. Yeah, it's working. There we go. Yep, off screen as usual. Let me bring it back on here so you can see it. There it is. And I've got a kind of aqua dot, and right in this region someplace, there it is, sitting right there, is the open circle. So now if I move up with the solid circle, here's what you see. And it leaves a trail. And that's your Etch-A-Sketch. You see? The trail. Now let's look at the solid one. I'm going to move it down. And it also leaves a trail, but it leaves a trail of circles, if you'll notice. If you look very closely at it, probably can't see it too well in this movie, but when you actually do it on your screen, you'll be able to see the separate little circles that it's drawing, rather than drawing solid. You might want to make your dot thinner, smaller, and that'll make your line thinner. And of course, I can always go up and change the color of these. Let's change the color of the open one. It was green. Let's make it, how about this one? Maroon. And then let's change the color of the solid one. And let's see, we've got that. How about red? No. How about this one, blue? All right, we'll see how that works. And of course, if I come down now for that one, there it goes. You see, and the second I drew it, it changed the color. And then let's see, what are we going to do here? Let's just go down on this one too. And now I think you can see the circles a little better on this. So, your job is to do an Etch-A-Sketch. It's mostly copy-paste, just a few lines and a few copying, and you're done.